I came home to find my pregnant sister standing on my porch with a suitcase, claiming my house was now hers because Mom said so. They thought I'd roll over and give up everything I built. They were wrong. If you've ever had family try to guilt-trip you out of what's rightfully yours, or you just love a satisfying tale of karma served cold, stick around. This story has betrayal, revenge, and the most satisfying downfall you'll hear all week. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss how this entitled scheme completely backfired. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped onto the porch. The wind smelled like fresh paint and lemon disinfectant. My doormat was missing. It had my dog's name on it, so I knew no one else would have taken it unless they meant to take everything. Else, too, I unlocked the door with a strange cold tightness in my gut, like the silence before a storm. And the moment the door creaked open, I felt like I had walked into someone else's house. Boxes were everywhere, stacked in clumsy towers that smelled of cardboard and baby powder. The walls had been repainted, a soft pale blue. The furniture had been rearranged. My black leather couch was gone. In its place sat a beige monstrosity I had never seen before, with a woman I didn't immediately recognize, lounging on it like she owned the place. She looked up from her phone just long enough to glance at me, like I was the one who didn't belong. Then I saw her, my mother, wearing her floral print church dress and that familiar patronizing smile that always followed chaos. She was standing in the hallway holding a measuring tape and murmuring to herself. When she saw me, her eyes widened in surprise, as if I was the guest. "Oh, you're back early," she said. Like I had interrupted her afternoon tea. I couldn't speak for a full 5 seconds. "Why are there people in my house?" I finally asked, and my voice came out hoarse and low. Mother beamed and gestured around like a proud real estate agent, "Just getting things ready for your sister and the baby." "Of course." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The woman on the couch let out a dramatic sigh and stood up, revealing her heavily pregnant belly. My sister, Manda. Her hair was up in a messy bun, and she was wearing one of my old college t-shirts. Like it belonged to her. She gave me a smug half-smile. "Chill out. It's not a big deal. We're just getting settled." Settled in my house. My living room smelled like baby wipes and lavender air freshener. "What the hell is going on?" I said, walking further. In my bedroom door was wide open. Inside, the walls had been painted yellow. A crib had been pushed against the window. My mattress was gone. Not moved, gone. I turned back to the hallway, feeling heat rise in my chest. "You didn't even ask." "We knew you'd be difficult," my mother said. She turned to Amanda with a roll of her eyes. "This is exactly what I was worried about. He's so selfish sometimes." "I bought this house," I said. I could hear my pulse in my ears. "With my money after years of saving and working overtime, this house is mine." Amanda waved a hand as if brushing away a gnat. "You're single. You don't need this much space." "I have a baby on the way. I need a home." "And what I need doesn't matter," I asked. "You're being dramatic," my mother said with a laugh. "You always overreact." She stepped closer to me and placed a hand on my arm. "You're a man. You can bounce back. You'll find another place. Besides, family comes first. You know that, family." That word had always felt more like a weapon than a comfort. When it came from her, growing up, it had always been Amanda. This Amanda that, when I got straight, as she said, I was just doing what was expected. When Amanda passed one class with a C, she got a pizza party. When I got into college, she told me not to act superior. When Amanda dropped out, she told her she was brave for protecting her mental health. I had spent years creating distance between us. Buying this house had been the final step. It was small but cozy, had a little backyard where my dog liked to run in circles. It was mine. And now they were acting like I had just been holding it in trust for the royal arrival of Amanda's child. I walked over to the door and opened it wide. Out now. I said. Mother blinked. What? You heard me. All of you get out of my house. Amanda scoffed. Seriously, you're throwing out your pregnant sister. You broke into my home, rearranged everything, and acted like you were doing me a favor. I said, this isn't a misunderstanding. It's a hijacking. Mother's tone hardened. We didn't break in. We used the spare key, the one I gave you for emergencies, not for property theft. Stop being so selfish, she snapped. You have no idea how hard it's going to be for her. And the baby, you'll understand one day when you have kids. I'm not giving you this house, I said. My voice was calm now. Cold final Amanda crossed her arms. You'll regret this, Mother grabbed her purse and muttered something under her breath as they walked past me. I stood in the doorway and watched them go. One of the men who had been moving boxes, some cousin I hadn't seen in years, paused and looked at me like I had kicked out. A puppy? I didn't care. I closed the door and locked it. Then I checked every room, every drawer. My laptop was gone. My important documents were missing. My dog's toys had been shoved in a bag in the garage. They had planned this for a while. And if I had come home just one day later, I might not have had a house to come home to at all. I sat down on the floor of my stripped bedroom and stared at the yellow walls, and that's when it hit me. They weren't done, not even close. And this wasn't going to be a misunderstanding I could fix with a calm conversation or family therapy. This was war, and I was going to win it on my terms. No more giving the benefit of the doubt. No more hoping they'd change. No more Mr. Nice Brother. The next morning, my phone buzzed, non-stop voicemails, text messages, missed calls, all from relatives I barely spoke to. One from my aunt read, "Your poor mother told me you kicked her out while she was helping your sister. How could you?" Another said, "This is not the time to be petty. Family should come first." I stared at the screen in disbelief. They had spun the story like I was the villain in some twisted family drama. I walked through my house, still half stripped of my life. Amanda's things were everywhere. There was a pink diaper bag hanging on the hallway hook, where I used to hang my work bag. A baby monitor still sat plugged in on my nightstand, blinking like an unwanted reminder. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring with a cheerful, "Hello, sweetheart." Like nothing had happened, I skipped the greetings. "You told people I gave you the house." "Well, you didn't exactly say no before," she said, in that sickly sweet tone that always hid a knife. I never said yes, either. "You said you'd help your sister," she snapped. "Offering to help isn't the same as handing over my property." I said, "She's pregnant." I paused. "And that changes the laws of ownership." "How exactly?" "You're being spiteful," she said, then hung up. No warning, no goodbye. Just a deadline. An hour later, Amanda posted a photo of her belly in front of my fireplace with a caption that read, "So excited to start this next chapter with baby in our cozy new home family. Is everything?" The post had 200 likes and a string of comments. "Your brother is an angel." Such a blessing. I'm crying. This is so beautiful. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I took a breath and reminded myself Anger wasn't going to win. This war, logic wasn't either. Apparently, they had crafted their narrative and sold it like a fairy tale, and everyone was buying it. I changed the locks again, this time with a smart lock that notified me every time. Someone tried to enter. I also installed cameras, not just outside but in the living room, the hallway, and even my bedroom. It felt paranoid. But after watching strangers drag my couch out without permission, I figured paranoia was safer than being robbed. Blind again. 3 nights later, someone tried to unlock the door. The app pinged failed entry attempt. 1. Then 2. Then 3. They gave up after 4. But the footage showed Amanda standing at the door, trying my old key, with a confused look like the universe had betrayed her. The next morning, my mother called again, this time fuming. "Did you seriously change the locks again?" "I sure did." "You're being abusive." I laughed. Abusive is breaking into someone's house and trying to steal it. "You're going to make her lose the baby from stress," she hissed. My throat went dry. "That's manipulative even for you." "I'm telling everyone what you've done." "You already did. And guess what? I still live here." She hung up again. By then, the damage to my reputation had started spreading beyond family. A coworker casually asked me if I was really throwing my pregnant sister into the street. Another joked that I must hate babies. Even my boss looked uncomfortable when I walked into a meeting. Tried to explain, but people love drama more than truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed watching the yellow walls they had painted and thinking about how easy it had been for them to twist reality. How casually they had acted as if I owed them everything, just because we share blood. Amanda had always been the golden child. She got away with everything. When she crashed Mom's car at 17, I was grounded for letting her drive it. When she stole money from our father's wallet, it was just borrowing. When she got pregnant with a man she barely knew, it became a family mission to give her a perfect life. And I was the resource, the provider. The single man with a stable job and no kids, which in my mother's eyes made me a storage unit with a paycheck. But I was done being the spare part in someone else's story. The final straw came when I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from my mother. It read, "You're hurting this family and causing emotional distress to your sister and your unborn niece. We may be forced to take legal action if you don't reconsider your position." Legal action, as if they had any ground to stand on. Still, it chilled me. Not because I thought they would win, but because they were willing to go that far. I called my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, who sounded bored until I explained the situation. Then she said, "You're going to need documentation. Start now, take photos, log messages, and keep everything they send you." I told her about the social media posts, the break-ins, the threats. She paused, then said, "They're trying to establish residency. They want to claim the house through squatters' rights or some emotional manipulation. They'll probably escalate soon." That word again, escalate. I felt it in my bones. The tension wasn't peaking. It was climbing. Amanda posted another photo. The next day, this time in my backyard, holding a baby. Onesie caption read, "Our little one is already so loved. Thank you to everyone supporting us during this transition." I felt like a guest in my own life. The neighbors started acting weird. One waved hesitantly and said, "Congrats on becoming an uncle." I nodded and smiled through clenched teeth. I didn't correct them. Not yet, because Carla was right. I needed documentation. I needed patience. They thought they had me cornered, that I'd eventually give in just to shut everyone up. What they didn't know was that I had a plan forming. One built, not on rage, but on strategy, because if they wanted to play games, I was finally ready to win at their own rules, and they were about to find out that the quiet son is only quiet until you push him too far. The plan started with a single photo one I took of Amanda standing in my front yard with a man I later found out was her new boyfriend. They were holding hands, grinning like high schoolers, and standing right beneath the security camera she clearly didn't know existed. I printed it and added it to the growing folder of evidence. Over the next week, I compiled everything, screenshots of her posts, the ones that claimed she lived there, texts from my mother threatening legal action video clips showing Amanda attempting to enter with the old key receipts, proving I owned the house, a copy of the mortgage. My name alone on the deed. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, not my friends, not even Carla, until everything was lined up like dominoes ready to fall. Then I filed a cease and desist letter. Legally drafted, formally delivered. Amanda received hers first, hand-delivered, while she was in the driveway, trying to take maternity photos with a prop stroller and fake petals scattered in the grass. The look on her face when the courier said her full name and handed her the envelope was almost worth the trauma. My mother's arrived 2 days later. She didn't respond. Not directly. Instead, she posted a vague Facebook status that read, "Some people will sell their soul just to protect a piece of property, as if bricks and walls matter more than family." It got 70 likes and the usual parade of sympathy comments. I didn't care. I wasn't trying to win likes, I was trying to win peace. But Amanda was a cornered animal now, and cornered animals don't back down. They lash out. She filed a police report claiming she had been unlawfully evicted from her home. The officer who showed up was a young guy, probably just out of academy with the polite awkwardness of someone who didn't want to be involved. "Sir, we're just following up on a complaint filed about possible unlawful eviction." I invited him in, sat him down at the kitchen table. Opened the folder, he flipped through the documents. Quietly, then blinked at me and said, "You're the owner." "Yes, and she doesn't live here officially." "Nope." He nodded slowly, then closed the folder and stood. "Well, this seems pretty clear to me. Have a good day, sir." That night, Amanda posted another message, this time more pointed to the people who smile in your face and stab you in the back. Just know karma always collects. I started to wonder if they'd ever stop, but I hadn't even played my best card yet. That came. A week later, I had Carla draft an official notice that any further attempts to enter or claim residency would result in criminal trespassing charges. But I didn't just send it to Amanda and my mother. I also sent it to every relative who had messaged me in support of them. Each one got a personalized letter, explaining that they had been misinformed, that Amanda was not and had never been a legal resident of the home, that any assistance or coordination in helping her re-enter the property could result in their own legal liability. The silence afterward was beautiful. No more texts. No more calls. No more Facebook rants. I thought maybe they had given up, until I came home one night to find my front door vandalized, paint sprayed across it in huge red letters, "Selfie She." Didn't even get mad. I smiled because I had installed a new camera facing the front step just 3 days before. The footage showed Amanda pregnant belly and all wearing a hoodie and holding the spray can like a teenager trying to prove a point. I sent the clip to Carla, who said, "Perfect, That's criminal damage. We can use this. I didn't press charges. Not yet. I wanted to see what she would do next. That came 2 days later when I was at work. My doorbell. Camera pinged again. It was Amanda and my mother, trying to talk their way into the house with a story about forgotten medicine. I watched the live stream on my phone as they rattled the doorknob and gestured at the camera like it owed them an explanation. Then they left 15 minutes later. My neighbor texted me, "Hey, I overheard your mom saying she was going to try to change your locks when you leave for work tomorrow." That was the last straw. The final insult. The moment I stopped playing defense. I made a call, not to Carla, to a local reporter. I knew through a mutual friend. She ran a community column and loved stories about injustice. I gave her everything. The evidence, the timeline, the family drama, all of it. She wrote a piece titled "Entitled Sister Tries to Steal Brother's Home in Fake Gift Scheme," and published it with anonymized names and a blurred photo of Amanda in front of my fireplace. It went viral in our town within hours. The comments were brutal. People who had once supported Amanda turned on her. Wait, I liked her post last week. This is the same girl. She tried to squat in his house while pregnant. That's insane. How entitled do you have to be to think being pregnant means free property? Amanda deleted her social media. My mother called me, screaming, "How dare you drag this family's name through the mud? You did that all by yourself," I said, and hung up, then blocked. Her blocked. Amanda blocked everyone. I stood in my hallway and stared at the yellow walls they had painted, and I realized something. I didn't need to repaint them. I just needed to reclaim them. I pulled out a brush can of deep forest green I had bought months ago and never used, and I started painting over the yellow one stroke at a time. Every swipe was a little more peace, a little more clarity, little more me. They had declared war, thinking I would fold, but they had underestimated how far I would go to protect what I built, and they had no idea. The war was already lost. The fallout came faster than I expected. By the end of the week, Amanda's boyfriend had left her. Apparently, he had no interest in being part of a scandal involving trespassing, forgery, and property theft. One of his relatives had read the article and shared it at a family dinner. He packed his things and disappeared. Amanda tried to reach out again. This time, not with threats. She left a note taped to the mailbox. It said, "Please, let's talk. I don't have anywhere to go. I'm scared." I read. It once then burned it in the fireplace she had once posed in front of. Her fear wasn't my responsibility. My house was no longer a battleground. It was mine again. The doors stayed locked. The silence lasted 3 months. During that time, I repainted every room, got a new couch, replaced the rugs, deep cleaned the air vents. I made the house mine, not just legally, but emotionally. It no longer smelled like baby powder and stale entitlement. It smelled like lemon oil and peace. Then came the letter from a lawyer. Amanda was trying one last desperate move. She wanted to sue for emotional damages, claiming I had caused her stress that contributed to complications in her pregnancy. It was a stretch, a wild swing in the dark. But Carla was ready. We gathered the documents. Again, presented them cleanly, video logs of her trying to enter the home, illegally posts where she claimed ownership, text messages where she admitted I had never agreed to anything. The judge read through it all, then looked over her glasses at Amanda. "You are not entitled to something just because you want it more," she said. Verdict denied, court dismissed, and just like that, it was over. Amanda sat there, frozen lips, pressed tight eyes glazed over, like she had been slapped by reality for the first time in her life. My mother didn't come to court. Not once. After the story went public, she stopped being the social butterfly she always pretended to be. Too many people knew. Now she couldn't spin her tales in private. She was exposed. She tried to reach me. One final time. A voicemail. Her voice tired and cracked. I just wanted to say, I thought I was doing what was best. I see now that I pushed too hard. I'm sorry, but I didn't call her back. Because that apology wasn't for me. It was for her, too. Clear her conscience not to heal. Mine, forgiveness, isn't a key. I hand out for free. Amanda eventually moved in with our aunt, 2 states away. I heard through a distant cousin that she gave birth alone. The baby's name wasn't one I recognized. It wasn't named after me or anyone in our family. She started fresh good for her. I started fresh too. My house became my sanctuary again. Friends came over without awkward questions. My boss invited me to a retreat. And I actually went. The weight lifted. The past was sealed behind a locked door, with new paint and new memories. One afternoon, months later, I stood in my front yard watering the flowers. When my neighbor walked by, she smiled and said, "Glad things quieted down over there for you?" I smiled back and said, "Yeah, the ghosts moved out." She laughed, not quite sure what I meant, but I did. Because for a while my home had been haunted, not by spirits, but by greed and manipulation and twisted guilt. Now it was just me, and that was enough. There's something poetic about reclaiming space that was stolen, about taking back what's yours, not just with words, but with action, about not letting someone else rewrite your story, and then ask you to thank them for the privilege Amanda and my mother thought I would fold. Thought love meant surrender, but love doesn't mean giving up your life to fix someone else's mess. Love means boundaries. Love means protecting yourself from people who smile while building cages around you. They underestimated how stubborn I could be, how patient, how surgical my revenge would feel, even though all I did was tell the truth and hold the line. I didn't need to humiliate them publicly. They did that on their own. I just gave them the rope, and they built their own gallows. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own door locking behind you as peace finally returns. Sometimes it's the silence that follows after chaos has burned itself out. I walked inside my house, my home, my safe place, and as the evening sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the floor, I poured myself a drink, sat down in my favorite chair, and let out the longest breath I had held in months. Then my phone buzzed, a message from a friend who had followed. The whole saga, it said, "Dude, I heard someone's making a podcast episode about your story." I laughed, sipped my drink, and replied, "Tell them to title it, entitled, 'Mother Demands I Give My House to Her Because My Sister is Pregnant.' And maybe subtitle it, 'She Didn't Know I Was Done Being Nice.'"